Okay, welcome back to Spirit Lounge. Hope you guys are doing well. And next installment, almost to the end of the Upanisads, and this is a fairly long one, but this one's interesting because it further emphasizes how the Vedas, the Upanisads themselves, use the ear, the nose, the mouth, speech, mind as metaphors, abstractions to help split how we receive and also how the divine is manifest in us and around us. Particularly emphasized here is also the cosmic bodies, the sun and the moon, and representations and abstract that they are representing. At the end is a statement which is the only one that matters really, because it's the one that we should focus on. And I've pointed this one out as well. So let's just go through this and you'll see where we're going with it. So, okay, let's get to it. Okay, this is the Kausitaki-Brahmana. It's fairly long, has a lot of narrative, a lot of passage. Again, the Vedas, 1200 400 BCE, hence the way it's written, hence the metaphors and abstractions in association with all things within our bodies, environment, meteorological, cosmic, up above and so below. They use every aspect of it to describe the divine and how we receive it, and also how the divine is separated for us to understand it with all the various deities within the Vedas, the Hindu and other religions out there. Okay, so this is a fairly short description. It contains 4 chapters. We're not splitting into chapters, of just one contiguous block of passages and headings, and it's a teachings of a son that's gone to a sage to perform sacrifice and asks before he does it, asks his father a series of questions. His father's not able to answer, so they will go to the sage for these teachings. Okay, let's crack on. So the first part of the question, so rebirth and release through knowledge. Wishing to perform sacrifice, Aruni sent his son to perform the sacrifice. Excuse me. He arrived at his father's house and asked his father Gautama. So they always refer to Gautama rather. It's called the Buddha. So they refer to the fathers as Buddhas, as teachers more learned than they are. Is there, and they'll say this to those the seers as well, is there a hidden place in the world in which you will place me? The father said, I know not this. Let us learn the study of the Vedas at his residence. So this is the seer that they're going to see and perform sacrifice. Let us both go to Sitra Gunyayani. May I? So they go to the Sitra Gunyayani's residence and say, may I come near you as a pupil? He said, come, I will make you understand. So this is where the discourse starts. And it does actually talk in the passages, there's two reference of 2 ways in which we pass. And there are those who travel by the former do not return to new life on earth but attain liberation by gaining true knowledge of Brahman. This is the moksha. Remember, it's always referring, every single passage in the Vedas, in the Upanisads, refer to the ultimate reality, which is release from rebirth. It's constant. It's a constant repetition in every one of the Upanisads. Through knowledge and ascent out of this realm, remember, towards the absolute one. It's all that we need. If we take nothing away from this, this is all we need to take away. Those who travel by the latter to the world of fathers return to each to be born again. In other words, we're attached to the material and attached to outcomes and the material realm, that of the desire and the mental realm for me. Okay, then he said, those who depart from this world, they all in truth go to the moon. Its bright half thrives on their breathing spirits, and the latter dark half, so the bright side and the dark side of the moon, it causes them to be born again. The moon is the door to heaven. Whoever answers it properly sets free to higher worlds, and if they do not answer, they rain back down here in terms of reincarnate. As a worm, insect, fish, birds, to his deeds, to his knowledge, when he comes thither. Okay, so I want to address this before we go further. This is metaphorical. The moon is not the gateway to heaven, but remember in those days they looked at the cosmic bodies as gateways to things above them, the cosmic, the stars, which were regarded as heavens, which was regarded as the place in which we go beyond this. The unknown, the great unknown above, was regarded as the heavens. So they used these celestial bodies as abstractions to help understand the greater thing around them. Remember, this was 1200 BC. Okay, we have to remember when this was written. Some of this stuff is also in the Nag Hammadi, remember, which was written, 400 AD or somewhere around that, 300 to 400 AD. So it still existed then in lesser form. It does say here that you set free and then you rain down here as a worm insect according to his deeds or knowledge. This is not true. I can't prove this to you. But once you go into further discourse with self, with the divine in your own passage, you will understand that we do not we do not incarnate into a form lesser than our ascended state. This means our mental state, our expressive state, our spiritual state, our heart state, the way that we are able to express is we're in the body because we've achieved the state in which this body is needed for our ascent to move further on in our spiritual journeys, in our journey forward. We do not come back as an insect or a fish. We do not regress like this. This doesn't exist. This is actually in the Bhagavad Gita, which is like the Bible of Hindu Bible. The same philosophy exists there because it's age old and it's passed down. It hasn't been changed. This doesn't happen. I'll guarantee you this doesn't happen. What will happen is you'll stay in a state of frequency. You'll stay in a state of expanded awareness in which those like you will revolve around you. If you're morose and go into the darker practices and magical things and ritualistic and satanic and those, then you will come back around that same space to challenge you again to move on from it. The burden isn't being born as a bird or an insect. The burden is being born in the same state that you've always been incarnating, and that's the burden. This is the hell for me, is repeated incarnations with unresolved tendencies, past paradigms and behaviors, and states of expansion away from the divine Father and grace. This is where we are. Knowledge is truth. Knowledge is a part of our ascent. So this expands us into spiritual awareness. So yes, we will be raining down according to our knowledge, which is truth, which is awareness, expansion, but not into a bird or a fish. We don't go into a lesser form, in other words. This simply doesn't happen. Okay, and so to the gates of the moon, he asks, where are you? So this is saying, when you get to the gate of the moon, you're asked a question. And this is a very good question, actually. I found this, one of the parts of this Upanishad which was interesting, and it does actually say this in others, which I didn't call out earlier, but let's call out now. He asks, who are you? It's the only question we need to ask ourselves, is it not? And it'd be interesting if you ask the question, don't ask it intellectually, and say what you feel and discern what the answer is. Because it will also determine where you are in the incarnation cycle and also within spiritual expansive cycle. Which answer would you give? And if you want to give it in the comments and the feedback to this later, please feel free. When you ask yourself, if you were asked by the divine in a metaphorical attendance, which will determine whether you are going into the upper or the lower, let's just say, for just amusement's sake, and you were asked to determine who are you, and then also who am I, i.e. who are you, and the divine asks you to describe who am I to describe the divine in front of you, what are you going to say? What would you say? It's interesting. Have a think about that. He should answer the question, who are you? I am from the far shining. I'm a seed that was gathered and produced from that, and sent me in a man as an agent and placed me in a mother. Who are you? The sage asks again. I am you. Then he sets him free. So he's responded in a correct manner, and then sets him free into the realm of the divine, in other words. Okay, the course of Brahma world. Having entered on this path of the gods, they come to the worlds of Agni. So he passes on from the initial gate and then goes into these deific worlds, which are represented many times in Upanisads with deities, and these are just a few of them, which is Agni, which is fire; Vayu, which is the winds and the breath; Varuna, which is the ruler of the sky and the cosmic bodies above; Indra is the king, or the creator of all the devas, i.e. the deities like Agni and Vayu; and Svaga, which is the deity of the heavens; and Prajapati, which is the lord of creation. Now, these are all abstractions. And if you noticed, wind, fire, sky, cosmic heavens, cosmic bodies, representations of what they see around them. Very similar to the Nagamadi. Remember, the Nagamadi was very similar to this. They had archons and non-archons, which are representations of all of the same things. So you'll see this paradigm continue through other scripture that we will follow. This world, or Brahma, has Lake Ara, which is somewhere where the liberated souls must cross to reach the immortal world. The river Vajara, which is an ageless realm. The tree Ilya, which stands in heaven, and City Salaya, which is where the many deities, trees, and rivers, and etc. exist. And this is where Brahma enters into a person, and other deities exist in the city. To it, he who knows this comes. To him, Brahma runs towards. He has reached the river. He will not grow old. This is also the river we metaphorically talk about at the other side of the river, where the stones help us cross that passage. Each stone represents different things to us, a different state of expansion, experience, and perception. This is our growth cycles that we will go through in incarnational life, and those incarnational cycles are determined by us, the speed of which, or the slowness of which, or the negation to which we move towards the divine, or even recognize its existence at all. Many in this sadly in this human realm have dismissed that for logic, for mind, for intellectualism, for virtuousness, for self-righteousness, for the feeling of being good. Look how expressive I am as a good individual. This is all satisfying the human ego. And it's sad that many have dropped into this paradigm of cyclical behavior, which is taking them actually further and further away from the divine itself, which is why this world, if it continues in this vein, is only going to move towards a darker energy. And hopefully this will turn around. He comes to the tree Ilya, and the fragrance of Brahman enters him. He comes to the city of Salaya, and the flavors of Brahman enter him. He comes to the abode of Aparadita, and the radiance of Brahman enters him. And then he comes to the two doorkeepers of Indra and Prajapati. Remember, Indra being Prajapati, lord of creation, Indra being lord of the deities, the king of the devas up here. And they run away from him because he's been expanded. And he comes to the hall of Vibhu, and the glory of Brahma enters him there, the throne of Vikasana, where the Saman verses, and the Vikasana is represented by verses, rituals, formula, which represent the form of this being, such as which is the Saman verses are the 2 4 feet, the Sayata and the Nabusa are the 2 hind feet. Okay, I don't know why that happened there. Okay, it is wisdom, for by wisdom one sees clearly. And he moves on to Amatujas, which is a breathing spirit of past and future, and prosperity and earth. He who knows this ascends it just with 1 foot. So he ascends up to the Brahma with 1 foot. And the Brahma asks him, "Who are you?" again, and he should answer, "I am season and connected to all seasons. I am from space as the source, produced as a seed for a wife," very similar to a previous passage. "I am the light, I am the self of every single being. You are the self of every single being. What you are, that I am." He says to him, And then the Brahma says to him, then who am I? He should say, the real. What is that called the real? Is the response. Whatever is different from the gods, i.e. the sense organs, the vital breaths, the 5 vital breaths. This is expressed by the word satyam, which is truly. All this you are. This great seer consisting of the great word, whose form is in the Rig Vedas. You are the imperishable one, as Brahma, he says to him. By what do you inquire so the Brahma says to him, by what do you acquire my masculine names? And he responds, by vital breaths. By what my neuter, which is neither masculine nor feminine, neuter ones, by mind. By what my feminine names? By speech. By what smells? By the breath. By what forms? By the eye. By what sounds? By the ear. What flavors of food? By the tongue. What actions? By the hands. By how do you acquire pleasure and pain? By the body. By how do you acquire procreation? By the generative organ. What? By movement, feet and thoughts. By desire and by intelligence. And by intelligence the waters are my mold. Whatever victory is Brahma's, he gets. Who knows this? So this is just going through again all the abstractions of the physical body, the space outside, the ecological system, or the weathers, or the elements around us. These are all abstractions here. The doctrine of prana, life breath, identity with Brahman. So living spirit is Brahma, breathing spirit, which is Brahma. The mind is the messenger, the eye is protector, the ear is the announcer, the speech is a housekeeper. So you remember, see all of these abstractions, it's associating thoughts of the body again. Mind is the messenger of this breathing spirit. The mind is the receiver. The spirit and the heart are the originator of what's sent to the mind as the receiver, which then becomes the messenger through the processing of it. Becomes possessed of a messenger, etc. To this same breathing spirit as Brahma, these divinities, mind, ear, eye and speech, bring offering through he does not beg for it. So this is where we receive the divine and how we express the divine. This last bit was from giving offerings to a Brahma who does not beg for offerings from where he goes, or a traveling ascetic spirit. I didn't want to carry on with that because it wasn't really relevant to anything. Okay, the breathing spirit is Brahma. To this same breathing spirit, all beings bring offerings. Now, next, the attainment of the highest treasure. Night of the full moon, of a full moon and a new moon, half bright moon. Oblations are given to a fire, offerings into the fire. They say, hail to it, the divinity of names, eyes in the attainer, the ear, the mind, the wisdom. Having inhaled the smell of the fire, having silence, he should go forth, declare his wish, send a messenger. The messenger is a spirit, obtain his wish. The wish is to go to the highest element, in other words. The next longing to be realized by the divine powers is oblations of melted butter. There's a lot of, in the passages here, there's a lot of melted butter as giving offerings into the fire. I sacrifice in me, hail to you. Your breath I sacrifice in me, hail to you. Your eye I sacrifice, ear I sacrifice, mind I sacrifice, wisdom I sacrifice. These are the chanting that they're doing while they're giving oblations into the fire, in other words. As a ritual, as a practice, as a formula. Remember, these is from the Vedas themselves, in which they are achieving this identity with Brahma. There's a lot of ritual, a lot of practice, lots of formula, lots of sacrifice, a lot of fire as metaphor, and also practice and ritual that they do in the Upanisads, which actually come from the 4 Vedas. They're explained in detail in each of the 4 Vedas. Okay, sacrifice of self. Next, self-restraint. Inner fire sacrifice, as they call it, inner fire being desire. Man who speaks so long he is not able to breathe. There's no breathing when we speak. Sacrificing speech in breath. 2 unending immortal oblations. 1 continuously. This is breathing. You continuously breathe. Whatever of other oblations have an end, for they consist of works. So unless it's breathing, everything else as an oblation has an end, because it's a practice of some kind. Knowing this, the ancients did not offer the Agni Hotra, which is the purifying Vedic fire ceremony for sacrifice. Apparently this is a very powerful ceremony we can perform to nurture the environment, nurture life, for bountiful harvests and so forth. Praise of the Utka. Utka is a recitation, which is effectively a combination of things, is Brahma. Let him meditate on it as the Rig Veda, which is the hymn of praise. Let him meditate on it as the Yayus, which is the sacrificial formulas. Let him meditate on it as the Saman, which is gentle words, one, same, identical. Until all beings bow down for his greatness. In other words, keep practicing these things, these rituals or ukta, until one achieves this expansion. Let him, by his greatness, united and praise. The Utka is the most beautiful, splendid among the invocations of praise. The priest prepares itself, which is related to the sacrifice. The Yayus, Rig Veda, the Sapan, this is the self of all threefold knowledge. In fact, in other words, these are the threefold practices. Daily worship of the sun for the removal of sins. Now, this is another interesting part. Remember that they're worshipping cosmic bodies because these are regarded as heavenly deities. Literally regarded as heavenly deities, which is also mentioned in somewhat in the Nagamari also. 3 meditations of the all-conquering Kausitaki, which is a Sanskrit text. They used to worship the sun. You fetch water, you sprinkle water on a fire, saying, "You are the deliverer from my sin. You're in the middle of the sky, you are the deliverer from my sin. Whatever sin he committed by day or night, that he removes fully." You cannot remove what you've done by ritual. This is again an archaic belief. This is the sin that you have, or whatever you've done, is karmically yours. It will always be yours until it's negated in some way, or it's not through lessons, it's through negating the tendencies and expanding the perceptions. When you expand perceptions, you negate repeating paradigms of behavior and tendency. This is what creates what we call sin and karma, imbalanced karmic life. This is all a result of inadequate perception, closed off expansion, and unrealized movement towards spirit, towards the divine grace itself. And this is what they're saying. And we don't cancel out sin or karma because we do a practice. This has to be done by negating what we do, how we are, expanding our perceptions, not identifying with the world, our bodies, our pronouns, and all this other nonsense that we have in this world today. This is how we do it. We have to move towards grace fully. And there's a passage at the very end which summarizes it for me. Okay, adoration of the new moon for prosperity. Again, it's another practice to the moon for another material gain, or moving or another passage towards larger expansion through these ceremonies and rituals. Month by month, time of the new moon. Same manner worship it, saying, "That fair proportioned heart of mine which rests in the moon, in the sky, I deem myself the knower thereof. May I not weep for evil concerning my children. Increase my vigour. Do not increase by our vital breath. But he who hates us, whom we hate, increase by his breath, and his offering and his cattle. I turn myself along with the turn of the sun, on the night of the full moon. You are the King Soma." So I wrote this because it was interesting. This is effectively saying, have a ritual to the moon, asking for increased vigor and cattle and offspring, and through their meditative factories of the 5 breaths, but do not increase it by the sacrifice of their vital breath, but by the sacrifice of another's vital breath. So this is very warped for me, a very archaic, and I understand that it was written 1200 BC to 400 BC. But these are the kind of things that when one reads it, you have to discern correctly. Many read scriptures like this in their literal sense and follow them in literal sense, sadly. But remember, this was written, take out what makes sense and leave the rest alone, is my advice to anyone who reads things like this. The Brahma is one mouth of you, yes. The mouth make an eater of food. Knowledge and wisdom is food. He who hates as we hate. Now this word hate should not be used because it's a negative vibration. We don't hate anyone and no one hates us. Change this paradigm. This is again from where it came. Waste away with his vital breath. I turn myself along with the sun. Again, it's asking for the sacrifice through another. This is how I see this as offspring and cattle. It's asking for prosperity through one at the behest of another. Okay, manifestation of Brahman. Next, the dying around the gods. This Brahman shines forth. Its light goes to the sun alone, and its vital breath to the wind. Remember, the sun is always the light, giver of life, because it shines on everything equally, lower and upper, as it's regarded in the Vedas. Brahma shines forth. This dies when the sun is not seen. This for me is the light is not seen. Brahma dies when we don't understand or recognize that we have the one, the true self within, which is the breath of the divine. This dies when it's not seen, but its light goes on to the lightning, it says here, and its vital breaths to the wind. The Brahma shines forth, always waiting for us to connect to it, remember. And it continues, and it goes on to this for the moon, the same passage. These divinities, having entered into wind, though they dies in the wind, do not perish. They come forth again, now with reference to the self. So these divinities and deities are the aspects of everything around us and ourselves. They don't die because they're just representations. And now with the passages moves on to the self itself. This Brahma shines forth, it speaks with speech. Light goes into the eye. The vital breath shines forth when one sees with the eye. This is the inner eye. It dies when one does not see. Shines when one speaks, hears, thinks. And again, it goes on and on to other aspects of our physical body, touch, movement. Okay, the doctrine of life breath. The greatest gift is the knowledge of Indra. Again, Indra is another deity, the creator of the deities themselves, the god of the deities, or the devas, which are the upper deities. Okay, Parthadanana, the son of Divodasa, arrived at the beloved abode of Indra. Indra said, choose a boon, i.e. a wish. He said, no, choose that boon for me and make it most beneficial for mankind. Understand me, said Indra. I deem most beautiful he who knows me. By no deed of this in this world will he be injured. So he's saying that he believes that understanding Indra is the best for mankind. Excuse me. Can't blow my nose and have a little sneeze there. Where were we? I deem most beneficial he who knows me. By no deed of his in his world injured. I am the breathing spirit. Meditate on me as the intelligent self. The breathing spirit obtains one immortality in this world. By intelligence, true conception, he reached his full term of life in this world. He obtains immortality. To make known a name by speech, a form by eye, a sound by ear, a thought by mind, the vital breaths deprived of speech, and the vital breaths deprived of speech become dumb, deprived of eye become blind, deprived of ear become deaf, deprived of mind become childish, When a person is so asleep that he sees no dream, he becomes one with that breathing spirit alone. They do say a dreamless sleep when we actually don't remember anything. We're actually transcending towards the divine. Our spirit is. The same spirit, the intelligence self, seizes hold of the body and makes it rise up. One should meditate on as the utka. Remember these recitations. This is the understanding. He becomes one in that breathing spirit alone. So the breathing spirit and intelligent self both are breathing spirits. In other words, they are one thing. Some texts say, for together they live in this body and together they go out of it. They do say that, but the same passage, the same sentences elsewhere. Okay, let's continue. Life, breath, and all the all obtaining. Speech gives up to him all the names. He breathes all the odors. Eye sees all the forms, through ears hears all the sounds, to mind understands all thoughts. These together dwell in the body and together they depart. There it is, the same sentence. All beings become one with this intelligence. The supremacy of intelligence. Having obtained control of speech by intelligence, obtains all names, i.e. names being the divine, all names being reading up to the divine. Control of breath, the smell of the divine. The eye hears all forms of the divine. Ear hears the divine. Tongue speaks, tastes the divine smell, or the divine taste of food. Food being knowledge, wisdom. Hands action, movement towards it. Pleasure, body, pain, generative organ. There's procreation, feet, movement, mind, thoughts. This is also physical world stuff. All through intelligence. Without intelligence, divine wisdom. Not without intelligence. This is divine wisdom intelligence, not ego mind intelligence. Does not make no to the self. And the state is saying if we don't have divine intelligence, we have mind intelligence. Then we do not know the self, because we can have this. My mind was everywhere. He says, breath does not make known an odor, etc. So other aspects listed are the same. So it's saying that the mind was everywhere, the breath was everywhere, the ear was hearing nothing, and so on and so forth. I didn't see the point of keep repeating this, because it's just repeating patterns of the same old passages and texts from all the previous Upanishads, and it becomes overly repetitive everywhere. But this is each Upanishad for me must have been a different seer, an ascetic, or a sage, or a person who gave their life into the forest for spiritual expansion and enlightenment. Each Upanishad is a reference to what they received, and they've either put it through as just knowledge, teaching, or through a metaphorical story or something else. The subject of all knowledge and its chief object. One should desire to understand and should know the speaker being the spirit, him who smells, the seer of form, the knower, know the hearer, know the discerner of the taste of knowledge, food, should know the doer, the divine spirit, know the minder and the thinker, again the spirit, the divine. No elements of intelligence, there would be no elements of existence, i.e. if there was no divine intelligence, there would be no elements of existence. The same breathing spirit is truly this intelligent self. Bliss is ageless and immortal. He wishes to lead up from these worlds to perform good actions. All cause is him whom he wishes to lead downward. The sovereign of the world, the Lord of life, he is myself, one should know. This is also the leading downwards. This is our own free will, but it's also the cause of down, upper, and the lower, because it's all within the divine itself. A progressive definition of Brahman. In the sun, the great. In the moon, the food. In lightning, truth. In thunder is sound. In wind is Indra. In space, the fullness. In fire, the vanquisher. In water is light. It references all the divinities, the self. In the mirror, the reflection. The shadow is the double and the echo of life. The shadow is our thumb. The spirit, the echo of real life, is within. A good passage. I just pulled out the relevant pieces here. Brahma in various. The person who is in the sun, on him do I meditate. is clad in white raiment, is the supreme, the head of all beings. I meditate on him, and he becomes supreme. The person in the moon, it goes on through all of these, the cosmic, the elements, and on of the self, physical attributes. The person in the moon, on him I meditate. He who meditates on him thus becomes indeed the self of food, which is knowledge. The person in lightning, I meditate on him as the self of truth, and becomes the self of truth. The person in thunder, I meditate on him, and I become the self of sound. The person in the air, I meditate on him as Indra, and become triumphant. Remember, the Indra is a triumphant one. The person in space, on him I meditate as the non-active Brahman, thus becomes filled with offspring, cattle, fame. These are the material aspects of ourselves, and reaches full term of life. The person who is in fire, I meditate and I become irresistible among others. The person among in the water, I meditate and becomes the self of light. The person in the mirror, on him I meditate and thus obtain from this second and becomes possessed of his second, i.e. becomes the second being, the spirit, and starts to become integrated with the spirit. The person who is in the echo, I meditate as life, thus he does not pass into unconsciousness before his time. The person who is in the sound, I meditate on him as death, thus does not die before his time. The person who while sleep moves, I meditate, who is King Yama, the king of death. This all here is subdued for his excellence, his welfare. The person who is in the body, I meditate, as Prajapati, the lord of creation. He becomes increased with offspring, cattle, fame, and is full of life, full term of life. The person in the right eye, I meditate, the self of speech, the self of fire, becomes the self of all these. The person in the left eye, I meditate as the truth of self, self of lightning, self of light, I become all these. In other words, these are abstractions of just the divine itself, the infinite spirit within the true self. And this is saying that they all represent all of these elements, the cosmic bodies, aspects of ourselves, and we become all of these because we become one with ourselves, one with grace, which is all of these things. These are all abstractions, remember. We don't have to for me, we don't concern ourselves with really any of this, the separations of light, the eye, the speech, the fire, because these are just ways that in those days people helped understand how we receive and describe the divine. Okay, the final slide here is the universal self in the heart. He who is the maker of these persons, he of whom all this is the work, he alone is to be known. This is the one I wanted to call out. He alone is to be known. Yes, there is no need for any of the preceding deities, any of the preceding metaphors, any of the preceding cosmic bodies or gods representing them, any of the deities representing any elements, any of the deities or aspects of our nose, our mouth, our feet, our eyes, our ears. It doesn't matter. All we need to understand is that our spirit exists within us and we move towards the one. This is all that needs to be known. Nothing else. Everything else is just abstraction, a manifestation of those who created these scriptures at the time. And remember the time in which these were created. We can completely understand why they did documented and created scripture like this. We are, many thousands of years move forward in our spiritual expansion, and at this point we understand things in much more clarity and don't need to use such a metaphor and such abstraction. However, it is still practiced in religion across the world, but we look at them as they truly are, as metaphorical abstractions. But some still represent the deities as actual true gods and existing, because they do exist now. They're creations, but they exist now because they're worshipped with spiritual and heartfelt energy, cascading into the idea of these, and therefore they manifest in this universe. So in fact, these deities and idols have force, have presence, have existence within this universe, and therefore we should never demean or insult another's deity or demigod or any abstraction that they use to represent the divine to themselves, because they're all real, particularly real for them in their hearts, and also through the fact that they have devotional energy cascaded to some. Remember, energy and thought, cascading matter, will produce that thing into reality within the realm in which it's created into reality. Okay, ultimate unity in the self. Then, in this life, breath alone, he becomes one. Speech becomes together, the eyes become together, the mind becomes together. This very life spirit, even the self-intelligence, has entered this body self. Ourselves depend. So in other metaphors and abstract deities, a chief among men. When he is understood, then the self, having struck down and overcome the demons, attain preeminence. He who knows this, knows this. Okay, so again, this is the second coming, is ourselves. Mentioned this many times already. We should move the passage to ourselves and practice, become, not just ritualistic, not just when we feel like it, and not just because it makes us feel good, or at ceremonial times when others are doing it. It doesn't really have much purpose if we don't follow the passage fully, honestly. Okay, so I want to say thanks for listening to this. I appreciate you guys listening, and I hope you enjoyed it. We're not far away. I think we've probably got 3 more Upanisads to go, and I think we're done. They're all very long. They take about 4 hours to transcribe into just one PowerPoint slide. That's before I've even put it into a PowerPoint slide and done a video for however time this is, 42 minutes to sometimes an hour. So it does take a long time, but I'm coming to an end, which I'm looking forward to, because we have a surprise next visit to another set of scripture, which I think you're very much going to enjoy. So thank you again for listening. I appreciate it, and God bless you all, and much love till next time. Thank you.